Welcome, everybody, to this episode of Doing Less to Do More. We've got Jane and Lindsay here today. Jane's fighting off a cold, so we're going to hear as much from her as we can, but she might drop off at some points. Well, exactly. Which leaves you with a lot more of me, which will either be fun or not. We'll see. But I'm really excited about the conversation today because I met Lindsay on LinkedIn, literally through posts. I was commenting on some stuff she was doing. I was reading along and following some incredible advice, and it looked like a wealth of experience to pull from. And so I reached out, we connected. We're like, I think we'd probably talk about a lot of the same things in a lot of the same ways and would love to have you on the show. And here she
Mhm.
is. So
Yeah.
I am getting to learn almost at the same time as you all are, which is always the most exciting. And I'm going to let Lindsay, you take it from here and introduce yourself and tell everybody what you're up to and all the amazing work you do.
Sure. So my name is Lindsay Berard. I am a psychologist candidate and high performance clinician. So my background is in clinical and sport and performance. And I get to hang out with people, whether it be individuals or teams and organizations, to help understand and unpack this idea of high performance culture and how do we bring out our best when we are trying to perform on demand, which performing can be, like at the national highest level of sport, but it can also be showing up and performing as a parent who's engaged with your kiddos. So, really helping people be their best self, not only in the moment, but over time.
And I think that's what stood out to me is that's so much of what Jane and I started talking about when we started this is it's not
Yeah.
about point in time performance. It's about like long-term performance and actually getting better results over time, not trying to, burn yourself out to get the big check mark now and then
Right.
proceed into 3 months of burnout recovery. So I think that's why it just stood out so much when you were posting about that mentality shift. I heard so much of the overlap between elite performers and entrepreneurs and parents and all of these different groupings. So I think it's really interesting. Awesome. So why don't we get started with just maybe give us your take on like what does doing less to do more mean to you in the work you do or in the world you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is no shortage of things that we can do. And it is very appealing. And a lot of people look at this unlimited smorgasbord of options of where can I spend my time? Who can I connect with? And so I think doing less to do more is learning how to fight the temptation to try to do and take on everything and really understanding what is most important for me. Where do I get my value? Where do I align with my values as a human? And how can I kind of continue to show up in the spaces that are most important for me to do so? So I can't be doing everything, but I want to be focusing in on the spaces and the opportunities that are really meaningful. And maybe it's only things that I can do or that are just really important to me. So I think it's being more intentional, really, more so than anything else.
I'll just pick up on one quick thing, which is this idea of like fighting all these temptations. I don't think that's a way we've heard that described before. And what I like about it too is we can also like give ourselves maybe a little grace for the fact that like
Right.
there are all of these distractions and things happening and they are temptations and it's easy to get caught up in them. But I think sometimes we feel like, oh, I'm like easily distracted or I'm not focused or I'm not disciplined or I'm not this, I'm not that. Like we give ourselves a hard time and we're maybe not recognizing that the world and a lot of the things going on around us are really there, like with the idea of trying to distract us and getting us to change direction and to
Yeah.
maybe give ourselves a little bit of grace that like we're not bad at it. We're not bad at focusing. Like there are a lot of temptations. There are a lot of things pulling at our attention.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people find value from being a good person who supports and takes on things or says
Mhm.
yes, right? Like, and is a reliable person. You're both nodding your heads in terms of like we have been brought up with that societal value of like be kind and caring and supportive and jump in to help people. And so we like innately are almost fighting against that. If I don't say yes, am I a bad person now? Like now I'm not kind. Now that person's not going to ask me again. And so we're like fighting with this internally, which we don't even really, I think, notice all the time. But we kind of have to like hijack that feeling and like not just answer in the moment. And Jane, you and I went to that workshop where we talked about like the urge is to say yes to everything all the time in the moment. But if we can just like wait a second and fight through that level of discomfort, both in ourselves and what we think someone else is going to have, that um, we will probably have a more aligned response and we won't maybe be taking on everything all at the same time.
I always have so many different ways I want to take these conversations because there's just so many ideas. I think the one I want to take it here from here, though, is I've been recently joining a new team to get on board and help them with some of the big problems they have going on organizationally. And my first step is always to figure out what the people who are already there on the team, like, what are their superpowers, is what I've
Right.
been calling it. And just like
Yeah.
trying to figure out of all the things that they have that are currently on their plate, which ones are the ones that like they love doing, they have fun when they're doing them, they're really good at it, and they want to get better at it. Skill,
Uh-huh.
joy, and interest is the way I kind of rank them. And I find like it's almost like a light bulb sometimes when people realize like, oh wait, I could do just that as a job. Like not just that. There's always a little extra, but I could be
Yeah.
doing that. And like, well, yeah, that's actually like as a person who wants the team to perform well, that would be ideal. Like,
Right.
why would I want you performing at a mediocre thing that you don't really like and you don't have any interest in getting better at versus this other thing, assuming it's a priority and a need in the organization. And
Right.
so I don't know if you have any, this is selfish as well as hopefully for everybody else. Do you have any tools or things that you've found have worked well to help pull out those superpowers from people to give them a bit of that like guiding light through the distractions and the options of what they could be doing to find the things that they like uniquely could be doing incredibly well?
Right. I mean, whenever I work with a team, we will go through both like a personal kind of inventory. So,
Mm,
obviously, with my clinical background, I'm using a lot of tools and assessments, which are not necessary, but really trying to understand and unpack like people's histories, what has been their educational experience, what important things have shaped them, and how has that shown up in the work or maybe not been in the work that they've done in the past so that we can kind of see everything and kind of reflect on the most meaningful things to that individual. Once we've had some ability to kind of like take a 90-foot view, we can then start to look at, what is really meaningful to that person. So maybe someone who really grew up performing a lot in a lot of like sports teams. Maybe they played soccer from when they were 5 and that was their passion and they, did that through university. Talking about that experience and saying like what about that team aspect that you really love and care about fits in here, right? So we're trying to see kind of parallels. It doesn't necessarily need to only be focused on what it is that we're doing now, but I really like to help people kind of like take a step back and look at everything in their lives to help identify where their strengths are and what is important to them.
I love that approach that it's more holistic instead of strictly like their work responsibilities. Because I
Hmm.
found that oftentimes people have superpowers they have no idea are super. There's people in my very close personal circle that are such amazing people. People they can like tell how you're feeling within 2 to 3 minutes of meeting you in incredible accuracy. But to them,
Yeah.
they've just always done it. That's not a work skill. That's not a valuable thing. That's just like I just know how to do that.
Yeah.
But when you have someone who can kind of see it and discover it and pull it out and realize like, okay, there are so many places in an organization where someone with that feeling finder or that like people awareness just excels so much. You can teach the rest of the skills, but that's the one that
Hmm.
really makes it magic. And
Yeah.
that's what I love about that holistic approach is you miss those things if you're looking at them as their work person.
Right. And I don't know if you ever get other people to give feedback on the team, right? So, like to find out, okay, so what are Jane's strengths? What do you go to Jane for? What is the only thing that Jane, if we're going to capture Jane, like what is the Jane thing, right? So, I think we're often also not, as you said, not aware of what our actual strengths are and we take it for granted. So, it is nice to always have that kind of outsider perspective as well to hold up that mirror to see like this is something that actually I am good at and like yeah that's a good quality that makes me feel good.
Yeah. We did an exercise with The Working Geniuses by Lencioni. I forget his first name. I'm terrible with names.
Jerk.
So Yes, thank you. I'm like, I should know it. I do know it. It's just not coming to me. Thank you. Working Geniuses. And it was the first time I've done lots of like I've loved the tests and finding out more about myself and others. And it helps me just like see how they see the world and how I can communicate better in terms that make sense to them.
Mhm.
But that was the first time where we did something where I realized like my strategic thinking and problem solving and architecting skills on their own were actually useful, because I've always given myself a hard time on like, I'm not the go get things done and execute on a plan. Like once the plan's built, I've kind of lost my interest in doing the little nitty gritty. I'll help, I'll support, I will cheerlead, I'll find the right people.
Mhm.
But that was the first time where I realized like, oh, like these are actually superpowers. They're just, if I'm in a role that expects a whole bunch of implementation, I'm probably not going to be the manager's favorite person. But if I'm in a seat where I can help shape the implementation, I'm going to be like their best friend.
Right.
And that finally clicked for me that like, it's not a shortcoming that the implementation is not my strong suit. I can work on improving it, but I can just lean into this thing that I'm already really, really great at. And I think
Mm.
like now I'm on a mission to try to find how to help more people have that same experience, to realize like this thing that they've always kind of just, that's just me. I just always do that. Find the lens to look at it through where they can apply it to really valuable problems and all of a sudden be like a sought after like free agent, where like people
Right.
look for this person because like, oh, they're the one for this kind of problem.
Yeah.
One thing that I would be really curious about, and this is something I was thinking about sort of last night, thinking about this conversation we were going to have today. Lindsay, knowing that you have worked with lots of athletes over the years,
Mm.
um, I feel like there's things we know about ourselves from like a body perspective in terms of knowing that like we don't have an endless amount of energy, right? That like, um, you know, I need a rest day, or I can only work out or run so long before I need a break. And even that idea of like, if you're planning for a big event, you start tapering at a certain point
Yep.
strategically to then be able to perform at your best. And those things make sense to us. But for a lot of folks, we think that when it comes to like our work and our brain power, and that sort of volume and production and work, that there's no end, or we should sort of keep pushing. And I'm kind of curious, in your experience, like, are there things that we should be taking from what we know about what works for us physically and applying that to how we work and like how our brain works and how we work mentally as well?
Yeah. Great question. I mean, I think, as you said, as you were talking, my first thought was like, the majority of time that an athlete spends is on building skills and practicing. The actual competition, depending on what sport it is, it's pretty short. And if I am working with an athlete, we really are focusing on how do we make the most of our practice opportunities so that when we are competing, we are doing it with the best possible chance. So we're not practicing unlimited all the time. We're being really intentional and focused on the things that we're doing. And then, as you said, we're taking the breaks that we need. So I think that really, those different aspects certainly fit within our work. I have had so many debates with executives and founders and teams of being like, okay, I get that you could just sit at your computer for 8 hours. I hear you. And also go for a 10-minute walk and then come back and let's see how you feel in that next block. Like, I understand that it feels like you're taking time away, but just like with the physical aspect, be, you would never expect yourself to be performing at 100% all of the time. So we need to have that ability to like prepare ourselves intentionally. So even thinking about that as we come into our work, we don't just like at our old age of 30s and 40s and 50s and beyond, we don't just like run into the gym and just start lifting weights without expecting that we're going to get hurt. So we need to have some sort of like preparation time to warm ourselves up. And then we're going to be intentional about what we're doing, and we're going to be thoughtful about how we're doing it and when we're doing it, and recognize that in order for our next little chunk of time where we're competing to be good, we do need to take that recovery in between, and that it can't just be a check the box exercise. It has to actually be a recovery. So that's where I think a lot of people struggle when we think about the sport to business collection there.
I love this so much. And this might become a recurring question for me when we have people who are in this field, because Jane, I asked this when when you did the 4-day work week panel with Joe and Lee and everybody there. I am just so genuinely curious, because I absolutely agree with you. I think we need the periods of practice, we need the periods of rest, and then we need periods of performance. And the ratios are different for each role. But I find that like there's such a wide gap between us knowing that that's true and the way that we work. Like we are
Hmm.
still classically in 8-hour time blocks
Yeah.
with an hour lunch and some breaks where we sit at a desk at a computer and work for roughly 8 hours. And that's kind of like the expectation. If anyone doesn't do that, it's seen in like, well, they're not working as hard as everybody else. Like,
Right.
how do we get from, I guess, in your opinion, what are some ways we get from knowing these things and actually applying them to the way we work in organizations?
Well, I think what I start off with is just meeting people where we're at, which, as you said, is we do not have a lot of capacity. Not everybody has the ability to make those changes and it be so significant, right? So, thinking about the opportunities that we do have, how can we be intentional and carve out some time? So, I'll talk a lot about micro recoveries, where the idea of like whether it be specific breaks in the day or whether it be post meeting, whether it be pre phone call, whether it be coffee break, we're doing something that is actually acting as a recovery so that we're taking the emotional and mental load that we just finished. We're working kind of through that, acknowledging what it was, and then having an opportunity to kind of like reset. So for some people, that is, we'll do some like little mindfulness grounding exercises that'll we'll talk about. We can talk about things like breathing, things that aren't going to take a lot of time, that maybe are accessible regardless of whether you're like running through the hallways or whether you're sitting at a desk and can't leave. Like things that we can do within ourselves that don't take a lot of time but have that same intention as an really important recovery piece.
Yeah. I like that, the on the go, because I find that's the biggest struggle is a lot of the things that get recommended need like a space or some privacy or
Right.
something that isn't available most times.
Hmm.
I feel like I wonder if that is, for a lot of people, part of the appeal of hybrid and remote. And what people liked about COVID is if you were working from home for the first time ever, maybe you found some opportunities for some really like organic and easy micro recovery in your day, right? Like
Right.
my dog just walked in the room. I'm gonna play with my dog for 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, I'm at least gonna switch gears and go like move the laundry or actually take some time to make myself a lunch. And it's
Right.
these micro recoveries that actually like really organically fit into your day. And that sort of might be a part of the appeal for a lot of people that liked the work from home idea.
Right. Well, I would think too, a lot of times it's the environment that is appealing and supportive, right? So sometimes we'll talk about, within a workplace, within an office, what can you set up within your environment that reminds you of the things that are important to you? And that is your cue that, yes, where I can run very easily from meeting to meeting to meeting. But when I look at my bulletin board and I've got this like breathe sign, that's a good little like check in. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. I am a human. I do need to do that.
And I feel like one of the things that one of the big struggles, like you say, not everybody has the ability to sort of plan their day and their work in the same way. Part of it is really getting like leaders on board for this, right?
Yeah.
Like, and leaders leading by example in doing this, because if they're taking the time and doing these things, they're making it clear to their team that it's okay for them to take the time and also do these things. But again, leaders seem to have, not all leaders, there's lots of open leaders, but we do see some resistance, right? Like, again, it's easy to measure 8 hours, bums and seats. You look
Mhm.
like you're working, therefore you're working. And you've mentioned that you talk with a lot of executives, founders about this kind of stuff. What are some of the sort of benefits or the things that you have sort of shared to maybe try and get leaders on board in terms of like taking something like this on and really putting it in practice?
Yeah, I think we start off with a conversation of like performance does not mean that people don't matter. And that when we focus on people, it doesn't mean that we're doing it at the expense of performance. So get really clear on like what are some of the things that are often coming up? What are some of their biggest challenges? And talk through things like retention or morale or someone who is taking a lot of sick time or they feel a little bit unpredictable or there's like workplace gossip or things that they might identify as being a completely different problem, but really by creating space for the humans to be well, we see the change in those things, right? Like, so trying to reframe the problem, that it's not that we're trying to just focus on people for the sake of all the good and like the people that don't want to work. I keep hearing that story of, well, young people don't want to do the work. That's why they just continue to complain about how they've got this mental health disorder and this thing, and they don't want to show up. They don't want to work anymore. And it's like, well, let's unpack that a little bit. Recognize what the preconceived notions of performance is and what you believe is helping someone perform. And let's talk through how that actually shows up and how people are actually coming into your workplace and what that looks like, so that we can make it feel like it's not an either or, it's a collective. We're working on all of these things together.
And we're seeing, this is anecdotal. I don't know that I've seen anything on this, but like when we talk about this idea of nobody wants to work anymore, I think what it is nobody wants to pretend anymore or performance theater anymore. Like I think the next generation of folks isn't interested in playing that game of looking like I'm working. If
Right.
I'm not, like, they're saying like, but no, I'm done. So like I'm gonna be done, or like my brain is done today. And hey, I need this time or I need this break in order to be able to perform. They're sort of not pretending, and they're almost not like people pleasing, maybe in the same way that our entire generation and other generations have really made normal. And so when we see people just being like, I'm not going to pretend, it's like a bit uncomfortable for us. We're like, but just play the game, just pretend.
Right. We had to do it like this. We had
Yeah.
to, this was like the growing pains. It's just like a rookie starting on a team. I think it's that also the younger generation is no longer willing to just assign their identity to a role at expense of everything else. Right. And I think that was previously what we were taught in schools, like, okay, well, you're a doctor or a lawyer, like you're some sort of title and everything needs to align with that. And that is at all costs what you have to do. Whereas now we're starting to see like we can have these superpowers, as Jordan's saying, and we can look for the best possibility. And I'm no longer going to let my self-worth and my value and my growth be at the expense of making it to some level that someone has decided for me. I think we've also started talking about it a lot more. So now this generation is seeing and hearing about things that we never would acknowledge as being a challenge before.
Sure. One of my favorite things to say to leaders and execs when we have those conversations about the next generation not working anymore is I always look at them and I'm like, you made them, right? Like they're your kids. Like this is your fault. They're your children. You're talking about the Gen Zs. I'm like, they're yours. Like you created this problem. No one to blame but yourselves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny because the title thing really gets me too. I've been pretty sick of titles for a long time. A lot of people I work with on the entrepreneurial side, I love the ones who will just call themselves founder. Like I just happen to make this thing, but I'll wear whatever hat is best for me in the given period of time. And so something I've started doing is asking people, once we do a bit of work to figure out like where their superpowers are or where they might be, I try to start getting them to think about like what would be a name for you? Like not a title, not like a system administrator or like a account manager, but like what would your name be to summarize what you do? And it's actually been pretty fun. I've gotten some good ones, and I kind of like this idea more of like, what is it that is you that you bring to an organization? And well, of course, you're going to have a title and a seat and a salary band and all those things. Like, it's time to do it for now. But if we can start thinking about people more of like, who is this superhero that we have, and where do we want to apply their skills and talents? I think we're going to have a lot better outcomes and a lot more fun. Because one of them that I heard this week was, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
The majestic eagle.
Awesome.
And I was like, I don't know how we're going to top that anymore. Like that's now their superhero name is the majestic eagle.
I love it. When they said it, were you like, that fits?
Yes. It's
I
like,
love
yeah,
that.
I can see it. I get it.
Yeah, I've done a similar exercise where it's like writing the title of this chapter for you. So what does this chapter look like? Because even, majestic eagle may soar and change as time goes on or the blend changes for them. But for this time period, what is it that we want to focus on or what's most important to you? And kind of same idea of doesn't have to be everything, but like what fits best for you.
Yeah. I like that seasons or period, like chapters is a great way to put it, because we're not the same person from the day we're born to the day we die. We're going to have different changing interests, skill sets, different things are going to bring us joy. Like that's the part that I think I've really been liking working with people who are seeing things a bit differently. Of
Uh-huh.
there's room to still work in some of the ways that we did. We don't have to throw the entire thing out, but there's also ways to build in these ways of getting better out of people. Like great people are everywhere. We just don't spend enough time helping them be great.
I also, yeah, I like this idea of chapters and this evolution. I think a lot of people do get stuck on this idea of like, well, like you say, a title, like I'm this and that's how I'm known. And we don't let ourselves grow and change throughout our career and like stay
Uh-huh.
curious.
Yeah.
And this idea of like, this is a season, this is a chapter that I'm in. And, I think about how different, Jordan, you talked about that whole execution implementation thing. Well, I was great at that in the first 10 or so years of my career. I did a lot of that. Right now I do a lot of other stuff, and I still have some skills there, but it's not my sweet spot the way it was then, based on like
Uh,
who I was and my experience and what my goals were and all of those things. And so we have to be able to like recognize we're changing, and then the courage that comes along with like letting go of something that you thought was your thing or that had been your thing for a while, to sort of open yourself up to something new and interesting that might be your new sweet spot.
yeah.
I think that is. It's just the more I think we can, entrepreneurs, people in organizations, you name it, you can get more clear about where you add most value. That's just like the highest leverage use of your time, period. Parenting, like apply it to any single thing. Even like I've seen some sports examples of a person practicing a certain some very small set of moves or skills, but to become fantastic at them, to be able to
Uh-huh.
win utilizing their incredible depths of knowledge of these couple of things.
Right.
And it just leans into where they're predisposed to be most effective. And you still round out, like you still add on and you still like, get better at other things. But if you start from, leveraging what's already great, you're just going to be so much further ahead than trying to start with something you're average at.
Well, and you're probably going to enjoy it more, and you're going to
Yeah.
feel more confident and aligned in yourself. And it's going to be much more enjoyable and like this life that I want to live, as opposed to something that I'm just making it through. Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I see we're at like 1 minute left. So, Lindsay, this has been fantastic. As always, these could always go for, I'm sure, like an hour, hour and a half, easily. Was there anything else you wanted to leave everybody with before me and Jane chime in with just our, what we took away from this chat?
I mean, I think the things that we touched on today, overarching, is just like intentionality. And so, whatever is most important to the viewers that are watching this, I think thinking about something that is important to you and how can you be a little bit more intentional about that in this next week. I'll leave that challenge for people.
Love a challenge. How about you, Jane?
So there were a couple things that I wrote down. The one that did come up, we didn't talk about it a ton, but I think would be a takeaway for leaders. Lindsay, you said, like, are we making space for humans to be well?
Yeah.
And I would love for leaders, I encourage leaders often to do this like weekly or bi-weekly practice of making time to lead, where they take time for themselves to sort of reflect and think about what's working with the team, what's not working, are they leading in alignment, all that kind of stuff. And I have a list of questions that they can go through. And I'm thinking like I want to add that
Mhm.
question to the checklist. And I would love for leaders on a regular basis to be thinking, like, are we creating space here for me as a leader to be well, but also are we creating a space here for our people to be well? And that's part of our responsibility as a leader. I think that's probably one of my biggest takeaways.
Love that.
Yeah, I love both of these. I'm going to maybe a tool if you want to give people the space to lead for themselves and for others. That the idea of micro recovery, I would challenge you to take your 1 hour blocks that you're doing right now and turn them into 45s or 50s and just give the 10 minutes with nothing. Don't plan something. Just take the
Yeah.
time to get up, walk around, get some water, think, write in your notebook, like whatever it is in the moment that you need. But like that 10-15 minutes doesn't have to be a lot. I think even that, if you got into a regular practice of every hour block of work that I do, 15 minutes of it is me taking a space away. I think
Uh-huh.
that'd be incredibly healthy for a lot of people.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Lindsay. This has been a ton of
Thanks for
fun.
having me. It was great. Yeah.
Thanks, Lindsay.
We'll drop some info for you in the comments if anyone wants to be talking to you more. Get in touch to see maybe something sparked interest in them to want to reach out and work with you. we'll make sure that they can get in touch with you. And if there's anything else, please let us know. Otherwise, it's been fantastic having you.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, Lindsay.
We'll
Happy
talk
Friday,
soon.
everybody. Bye.
Happy
Bye.
Friday. Have a good weekend.